Long before movies, novels, and the internet, humans created their own horror. They watched the changing seasons, the shrieking wind, and the darkness beyond their fires, and they imagined what lived out there. Over centuries, these imaginations took shape. Monsters with glowing eyes, spirits trapped between life and death, curses that pass from parent to child. But these legends also came from real events, unexplained disappearances, strange bodies found in the woods, and witnesses who swore they saw something impossible. These stories survived because they felt true. Tonight, we explore the most disturbing legends ever carried through time, legends that reveal not only our fear of the unknown, but the unknown's fear of being discovered. The story of the Wendigo begins in the frozen forests of North America, where winter can feel endless and the cold can swallow a person's sanity. For centuries, the indigenous tribes of the Algonquin-speaking people, such as the Ojibwe, Cree, and Innu, told stories of a creature born from starvation, loneliness, and the darkness hidden inside human nature. These were not just bedtime stories, they were warnings. Cautionary tales meant to protect people from losing themselves when the world around them became too harsh to survive. They spoke of a being that lurks in the deep woods, moving like a shadow across the snow, always hungry, always searching. They called it the Wendigo, a creature so terrifying that even saying its name at night was believed to attract it. In traditional stories, the Wendigo is more than a monster. It is the physical form of pure greed, cannibalism, and desperation. It begins as a human, someone trapped by hunger, isolation, or extreme cold, who crosses the final moral boundary and eats human flesh. Once this act is done, the person becomes corrupted forever. Their soul twists, their body stretches into a horrifying shape, their mind becomes controlled by a hunger that can never be satisfied. And from that moment, they stop being human and transform into something ancient and evil, a Wendigo. Imagine a creature taller than any man, sometimes described as thin as bones, with skin stretched tight like frozen leather. Its eyes glow like embers, and its voice sounds like a mix of wind howling through dead trees and a distant human scream. Some stories describe it with the head of a deer skull wearing a crown of antlers, while others say it looks like a starving man with ice hanging from its hair and lips. What all versions agree on is the most chilling detail. The Wendigo's chest is hollow. Its ribs are visible through its skin as if its body is slowly collapsing in on itself. It is said to be so hungry that even after devouring a whole person, it becomes even more starving than before. The more it eats, the stronger it becomes, but the emptier it feels inside. The legend likely began during brutal winters when food became scarce and survival depended on community and trust. The Wendigo acted as a symbolic reminder to never abandon one another, to never betray family or tribe, and to never give in to cannibalism no matter how desperate things became. If a person isolated themselves, became selfish, or showed signs of violent hunger, the elders would warn them that the Wendigo was watching. It was believed that the Wendigo does not just attack you, it can infect your thoughts. It whispers to you in the snow. It calls your name at night. It waits for your weakest moment, then crawls into your mind, planting the idea of cannibalism as if it were your own desire. The transformation begins inside, long before the creature shows itself. One of the most chilling aspects of the Wendigo myth is that it blends the supernatural with mental illness. In historical accounts, some people were described as having Wendigo psychosis, a condition in which they developed an intense craving for human flesh and a fear that they were turning into a monster. These people sometimes begged their families to kill them before they harmed anyone. European settlers who heard these stories wrote them down in journals, shocked by the horror of what they were witnessing. In some communities, if someone showed clear signs of Wendigo behavior, such as violent rage, extreme withdrawal, or obsession with cannibalism, they were sometimes executed out of fear that the creature was taking over. This shows just how deeply the legend shaped real-world behavior. The Wendigo also symbolizes something larger, the fear of losing one's humanity. It taught people that greed could destroy a community. If one person hoarded food during famine or refused to share resources, they were said to be acting like a Wendigo, becoming selfish enough to harm the group. This made the Wendigo not just a monster of the woods, but a monster of the soul. It represented the dangerous idea that humans can become less than human when they give in to their darkest impulses. As time passed, the legend evolved. In the 1800s and early 1900s, Western newspapers and anthropologists began reporting Wendigo sightings. One of the most famous cases involved a Cree man named Swift Runner. During the winter of 1878, he and his family became trapped in the forest. When rescuers finally reached him, they found that he had killed and eaten his wife and children, even though a trading post full of food was only a few kilometers away. Swift Runner claimed that a Wendigo spirit had possessed him, driving him to kill. His case became one of the most disturbing examples of Wendigo psychosis and spread the legend far beyond indigenous communities. In other reports, hunters in the Northern Territories claimed to see gigantic shadow figures moving across the tree line, chasing after moose or disappearing into frozen lakes. Some described hearing footsteps on the roof of their cabins at night. Others swore they heard a voice calling their name from deep inside the forest, even though no one else was around. Whether these experiences were hallucinations, fear, or something supernatural, they kept the legend alive. Modern interpretations of the Wendigo often mix traditional stories with horror fiction. Movies and shows portray it as a skeletal giant with glowing eyes and antlers, a terrifying beast stalking campers and hikers. But the original indigenous version is far deeper. It is not simply a monster trying to kill people, it is a spiritual warning, a message about what happens when someone becomes disconnected from their community, when hunger transforms into madness, or when selfishness becomes stronger than humanity. This psychological element is what makes the Wendigo one of the most disturbing legends ever told. There is also a chilling idea that the Wendigo is attracted to human weakness. If someone feels lonely, broken, or desperate, the Wendigo senses it like a predator smelling blood. It waits in the darkness for someone who has lost hope, someone who has wandered too far from camp, someone who is starving for warmth, love, or food. Once it targets you, it follows you silently. Many stories say you won't hear the Wendigo approach. Instead, you will feel an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. You might hear your own heartbeat echoing in your ears, or feel like the shadows behind the trees are moving. And then, in the distance, you see two glowing eyes watching you from the dark. Another terrifying detail is that the Wendigo is said to mimic voices. If you are lost in the woods, you might hear your friend calling for you, or a loved one asking for help. But when you move closer, the voice becomes distorted, echoing strangely between the trees. It is not a human voice, it is the Wendigo, luring you deeper into the forest. Many who go missing are said to have followed these voices, unaware that they were walking straight into the creature's trap. Despite centuries of fear, one thing remains clear. The legend of the Wendigo continues to survive because it touches something universal. It reflects our fear of isolation, starvation, and losing control. It is a reminder that the strongest monsters are not always outside. It can be the darkness inside us. And in the frozen silence of winter, when the world becomes still and the night stretches for hours, the Wendigo becomes more than just a story. It becomes a possibility. The legend of the Kresu is one of Southeast Asia's most haunting and unforgettable stories. It is a tale whispered in the warm, humid nights of rural Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos. a story known not just as a myth, but as something people in villages still fear today. If you travel to the countryside late at night, some locals will warn you not to walk alone near rice fields and not to follow any strange lights moving gently through the darkness. Because those lights, they say, might not be fireflies. They might belong to the Krisu, one of the most disturbing spirits in Thai folklore. The Krisu is unlike any other supernatural creature in the world. She's described as a floating woman's head with her internal organs dangling freely below her neck. Heart, lungs, stomach, all glowing softly in the night like wet lanterns. She drifts silently above the ground, searching for blood, flesh, and anything alive. The sight of her is so shocking that people who claim to have seen the Krisu cannot forget it for the rest of their lives. The image becomes burned into their memories. The pale face, the long hair, the dangling organs swinging gently like jellyfish tentacles as she moves. But the horror of the Krisu is not just her appearance. It is her backstory, how she becomes what she is, and the curse that traps her between human life and monstrous hunger. Every version of the legend begins with a woman who suffers a great tragedy, betrayal, or punishment. Many centuries ago, during the time of ancient kingdoms and strict royal laws, a young noblewoman was accused of treason. She was believed to have given information to the enemies of her kingdom, though some storytellers say she was innocent, punished only because she refused a king's advances. As punishment, she was tied to a pole and burned alive. As the flames rose around her, she screamed for help, but no help came. Yet just before her body was fully consumed, a black magic sorceress touched the ground and cursed her soul. The woman did not die completely. Instead, her spirit was split apart. Her body burned, but her head and organs were cursed to live forever, wandering the earth in hunger and misery. Another version, believed strongly in many villages, says the Krisu was once a woman practicing forbidden magic to gain beauty, love, or power. She worked with a dark sorcerer who gave her a charm, but during a ritual, something went terribly wrong. The spell backfired and the woman's body refused to join with her spirit. At night, her head tore itself from her body, dragging her glowing organs with it. From that moment, she was cursed, a normal human by day, a terrifying phantom by night. Perhaps the darkest version says that the Krisu is born, not made. A woman who commits heavy sins, especially involving jealousy, betrayal, or cruelty, can pass the curse down through generations. A baby girl in such a family may look normal, but when she grows older, around the age of puberty, the curse awakens. Her hunger grows. Her dreams are filled with blood. And one night when the moon is high and the crickets become silent, her head rips away from her body and floats into the warm night air. Her soul becomes the Krisu, leaving her empty body lying motionless on the floor until dawn. But no matter which version you hear, the central theme is always the same. The Krisu is a soul trapped between worlds, cursed to roam the night in search of food. And her hunger is unlike anything we can imagine. In the quiet hours after midnight, the Krisu drifts through villages looking for fresh blood, organs, and raw meat. She moves silently, guided by the scent of life, newborn animals, open wounds, or even the scent of childbirth. In Thai folklore, the Krisu is especially feared by pregnant women. It is said that she is drawn to them, attracted by the smell of blood and the warmth of a growing baby. In many rural areas, people still hang thorny vines or sharp bamboo around the windows of homes where a woman is giving birth. The belief is that the Krisu's exposed organs can be caught or cut by these sharp objects, forcing her to flee. The Krisu does not simply eat to survive. She eats because she's cursed with endless hunger. The more she devours, the more she craves. Some stories say that her glowing organs pulse brightly the moment she senses food. Villagers who see strange red or orange lights floating between the trees late at night believe the Krisu is nearby. These lights are not bright or sharp. They are soft, trembling glows, as if something alive is gently breathing in the darkness. What makes the Krisu even more haunting is that she still lives as a normal woman during the day. Her body, empty and lifeless at night, becomes human again at dawn. The head and organs return, reattaching as if nothing happened. She looks and acts like everyone else. She eats meals, talks to neighbors, works in the fields, and lives her life silently carrying the curse inside her. No one knows who she really is. That is why fear spreads easily in rural areas, because the Krisu could be anyone. Some folklore says her human body always smells faintly of rot or fish because of the fluids that drip from her organs when she returns at sunrise. Others say she looks pale and weak during the day, as if she is recovering from a long night of hunting. The villagers who discover a Krisu often do so accidentally. They might walk past a woman's home late at night and see her head missing, her body lying inside like a discarded shell. Or they might find strange trails of sticky, glowing fluids on the ground, fluids believed to come from the creature's organs. When word spreads that someone may be a Krisu, that person becomes isolated, watched by neighbors, and sometimes driven away. Fear and superstition make people harsh. In older days, villages even hunted suspected Krisus to protect their homes and families. Another chilling part of the legend is that the Krisu is said to be afraid of dogs. Dogs can smell her unnatural scent. When her head floats past, the dogs sense the danger and begin barking and chasing after her. Villagers claim that hearing a sudden pack of dogs barking wildly in the middle of the night is a sign that the Krisu is near. The creature panics when dogs are around, because if someone sees her true form, she could be killed or her body might be destroyed before dawn, trapping her forever in ghost form. To survive, the Krisu must return to her body before sunrise. If she does not, her human shell will decay rapidly, making it impossible for her to hide among people. In some versions, sunlight weakens her spirit, but does not kill her. She hides inside forests, caves, or abandoned houses until night returns. This is why people who wake up early for farming or fishing sometimes feel uneasy when walking through misty fields. If they see something glowing or hear soft breathing, they immediately turn back. No one wants to be the first to see the Krisu before dawn. Even today, stories of the Krisu continue to appear in rural news reports, especially in Thailand and Cambodia. Farmers claim they have found livestock dead with strange bite marks. People say they have seen floating lights at night, moving too smoothly to be humans. In some villages, older people still warn children not to stay out late. Whether these sightings are real, imagined, or influenced by centuries of storytelling, the fear remains deeply rooted. The reason the Krisu legend survives so strongly is because it touches many human emotions: fear of the dark, fear of women's suffering, fear of curses, and fear of hidden identities. It also reflects old cultural beliefs about purity, shame, and punishment. The Krisu is not just a monster. She is a symbol of a woman trapped by fate, cursed by mistakes or injustices that cannot be undone. She is lonely, hungry, and forever searching for something she can never satisfy. At the heart of the Krisu legend lies a powerful message. Appearance can be deceiving. Someone who looks ordinary by day might carry a darkness inside them that no one can see. And sometimes, the scariest monsters are the ones living closest to us. In the vast desert lands of the American Southwest, where the horizon stretches endlessly and silence feels almost alive, there is a legend so feared that many Navajo people refuse to speak its name out loud. They believe that mentioning it invites its presence, giving it permission to enter your life. This is the legend of the Skinwalker, one of the most disturbing and powerful stories in Navajo culture. It is not just a ghost tale or a campfire story. It is a belief rooted deep in history, spirituality, and the fear of what happens when a person willingly abandons their humanity in exchange for supernatural power. To the Navajo, skinwalkers are real. They walk, they hunt, and they hide in the shadows of the night. The origin of the Skinwalker begins with the Navajo understanding of balance. In their belief system, everything has a harmony: good and evil, life and death, healing and destruction. Medicine men, known as healers, are responsible for keeping this balance. They use chants, herbs, and rituals to protect their people. But just like in any belief system, there are those who turn away from the path of healing, those who crave power, revenge, or forbidden knowledge. When a healer chooses to break all moral boundaries, they can become a Yi Nodloshi, which roughly translates to, "With it, he goes on all fours." That is the true name of the Skinwalker. Becoming a Skinwalker requires the most horrifying act imaginable: taking the life of a close family member, a sibling, a parent, a child. This act destroys the last piece of humanity within the person, opening the doorway to dark powers. When the ritual is complete, the person gains the ability to shift into any animal they desire: wolves, coyotes, owls, foxes, dogs. They can run faster than any human, leap across cliffs, and blend into the night so completely that even skilled hunters cannot track them. But this gift comes with a curse. The person ceases to be human in spirit. They are trapped in a state of emptiness, fueled by hatred, jealousy, or hunger for power. Their heart becomes cold, their soul becomes twisted, and their body begins to change. Skinwalkers are often described as half-human, half-animal creatures. Their limbs may bend at wrong angles. Their movements are unnatural, as if each step is being pulled by something not entirely alive. Their eyes, even in animal form, are said to glow with a disturbing intelligence. When seen in human form, they often appear with hollow eyes, pale skin, and a smell of death or decay. But the most chilling detail is their voice. Skinwalkers can mimic sounds perfectly: children crying, loved ones calling your name, or the voice of someone you trust. They use this skill to lure victims into the desert, to confuse people at night, or simply to terrify those they are watching. One of the most disturbing aspects of Skinwalker lore is that these beings are not outsiders or strangers. They come from within the community. They once lived normal lives before choosing the path of darkness. This is what makes them so terrifying: the idea that anyone, even someone who once protected the tribe, can transform into something monstrous if they let corruption take control. In this sense, the Skinwalker is more than a creature. It is a warning about the darkness hidden inside human nature and what happens when a person sacrifices their morality in exchange for power. Many Navajo families have stories passed down about encounters with Skinwalkers. Some tell of strange figures seen standing on cliffs late at night, watching silently before disappearing into thin air. Others speak of animals moving in unnatural ways: wolves walking on two legs, coyotes standing still for hours, staring with human-like eyes. Ranchers have found their livestock mutilated with surgical precision, bodies arranged in patterns that no natural predator could create. Sometimes they find tracks that begin as hoof prints or paw prints, then suddenly transform into human footprints. One of the most famous locations connected to Skinwalker legends is a remote ranch in Utah, often referred to in modern stories as Skinwalker Ranch. Over decades, families living there reported sightings of massive wolves that could not be killed by gunshots, strange lights hovering over fields, creatures peeking through windows, and shadowy figures running across the property faster than any man could. Whether these stories are exaggerations, illusions, or something truly supernatural, they fueled the belief that Skinwalkers are not just myths. They are active, moving across deserts, watching from the darkness. The Navajo people traditionally avoid discussing Skinwalkers openly. They believe speaking about them attracts their attention, and that Skinwalkers are always listening, always searching for those who fear them or mention them openly. This fear is not superstition, it is survival. To the Navajo, skinwalkers are not spirits or demons. They are real people who have chosen to become something monstrous. This makes them even more dangerous because they understand human behavior. They know how to stalk, how to hide, and how to manipulate. A skinwalker's power goes beyond shape-shifting. They are said to use dark magic to control minds, spreading disease, causing nightmares, and creating illusions. Some can move so quietly that even dogs cannot detect them. Others can interfere with electronics, making lights flicker and devices malfunction. In older times, skinwalkers were said to appear at windows at night, tapping lightly, whispering names, or trying to lure someone outside. People who answered the call often disappeared without a trace, their bodies never found. One chilling detail in Navajo stories is that skinwalkers are extremely fast and can keep up with cars. Drivers traveling through reservations at night have reported seeing a creature running alongside their vehicle, keeping up easily even at high speeds. When they look out the window, they see a twisted human animal form with glowing eyes and a long, distorted smile. If anyone tries to stop the vehicle, the creature vanishes into the desert, leaving behind only dust and a feeling of dread. Despite their terrifying power, skinwalkers do have weaknesses. Some legends say they can't enter a home unless invited, similar to old vampire stories. Others say that speaking their true identity out loud destroys their power. But uncovering a skinwalker's real identity is almost impossible because they hide among people in the day. They live normal lives, disguising themselves as regular members of the community. This is why fear of skinwalkers runs so deeply, because you never know who could be one. The symbolism of the skinwalker is profound. It represents the ultimate betrayal, a healer who becomes a destroyer, a protector who becomes a predator. It reflects the fear that the people closest to us have the potential to cause the most harm. Skinwalkers embody the loss of balance between good and evil and the terrifying idea that anyone, under the right conditions, can turn into something unrecognizable. And in the endless silence of the desert night, when the wind sweeps across the sand and the sky turns as black as ink, some say you can still hear the soft sound of footsteps behind you, light, fast, inhuman, watching, waiting.
There are legends that frighten you, and then there are legends that follow you. La Llorona, the weeping woman, is one of those stories that clings to you long after you hear it. She lives in the quiet spaces of the night, in the sound of running water, in the wind that carries a woman's cry. For centuries, across Mexico, Central America, and the American Southwest, people have sworn they heard her voice. Soft, broken, and filled with endless sorrow, calling out for her lost children. The legend is so old that no one knows exactly when it began, but its power has only grown over time. It is more than a ghost story. It is a tale of love twisted into madness, grief transformed into a curse, and a warning that still echoes through generations. The story usually begins with a woman named Maria. In many versions, she was one of the most beautiful women in her village, admired by everyone who saw her. But beauty, in old stories, often comes with danger. Maria caught the attention of a wealthy man, perhaps a ranch owner or a nobleman, depending on the region. He fell deeply in love with her, and she with him. Their romance was full of passion, and soon they had 2 children together. For a time, life was perfect. But perfection never lasts long in legends like these. Over the years, the man began to drift away, losing interest in Maria, though he still adored the children. In some versions, he left her entirely for another woman. In others, he returned only to see his children, ignoring Maria as if she were invisible. This was the moment when love began to rot into something darker. Maria watched the man she loved choose another life, another woman, or simply a future where she no longer existed. The pain ate away at her. It twisted her thoughts, And one evening, consumed by heartbreak and rage, she took her children to the river. No one knows exactly what happened next, whether she drowned them in blind anger or whether her grief pushed her into an uncontrollable madness. But by the end of that moment, her children were gone, swallowed by the river's currents. The horror of what she had done snapped her back to reality. When she realized her children were dead, something inside her shattered completely. She ran through the village screaming for them, crying out into the night, her voice filled with a pain so deep that people said it didn't sound human. And then, unable to face what she had done, Maria threw herself into the same river. Her body was later found along the shore, dressed in white, her face frozen in anguish. But the story does not end with her death. In fact, her death is only the beginning. Because the gods, or the spirits depending on the version, refused to let her soul enter the afterlife. They punished her, condemning her to wander the world forever, searching for the children she herself had taken. She became a restless spirit, cursed to roam rivers, lakes, and canals every night. That is when she became Llorona, the weeping woman. Her cries, "Ahí mis hijos," or "Where are my children?" echo across the water, carried by the night wind. To this day, people say that if you hear her crying close by, you are safe. But if her voice sounds far away, she is actually standing right behind you. La Llorona's curse is more than just eternal sorrow. Over time, the legend grew darker. People said that because she failed to protect her own children, she tries to take the children of others. She appears in your bodies of water, wearing a long white dress, her hair covering her face. At first, she may look like a beautiful woman in need of help, crying softly. But when someone gets close enough, especially children who wander out alone, her face changes. Her eyes become hollow, her skin pale as river foam, and her mouth opens in a scream that freezes the blood. Then she reaches out with long, wet fingers and takes the child, dragging them into the water below. Parents across Mexico use this story to teach their children about safety, warning them never to go out late, never to walk near rivers alone, and never to trust a crying woman dressed in white. But what makes La Llorona so disturbing is not her ghostly appearance. It is her humanity. She is not a monster born from darkness or a creature from another realm. She was a mother, a woman who loved deeply, a woman who broke, a woman who made the most unforgivable mistake. Her legend reminds us how thin the line is between love and destruction, between sanity and madness. It asks a chilling question. When someone loses the person they love the most, what are they capable of? The story became so widespread because it connected to real fears in families and communities. In older times, rivers and canals were dangerous places, especially at night. People, especially children, could easily drown in fast currents. So the legend became a warning. Stay safe, stay close, do not wander too far. But the emotional power of the story went far beyond simple caution. It reflected the lives of countless women throughout history. Women left by husbands, women struggling to raise children alone, women judged harshly by society. La Llorona became a symbol of grief that cannot be healed, of mistakes that cannot be undone. Throughout the years, there have been real-life reports that kept the legend alive. Families living near old canals say they have heard a woman crying late at night, her voice rising and falling like waves. Some describe seeing a white figure standing near the riverbank, disappearing when approached. Drivers late at night along rural roads have claimed to see a woman in a long white dress walking on the side of the road, her head down, her shoulders shaking as if she were crying. When they slow down to help, she vanishes right in front of their headlights. In rare cases, people say she appeared in the back seat of their car for a brief moment, a shadow with wet hair and hollow eyes before disappearing again. There are stories of fishermen who saw her form reflected on the water, even though no one was standing behind them. And there are countless tales from children who swear they heard someone calling their name at night, urging them to come closer to the water. No one knows whether these experiences are supernatural encounters, hallucinations, or simply the mind playing tricks in the darkness. But the number of such reports over the centuries is impossible to ignore. Wherever there is water, rivers, lakes, streams, canals, the legend of Llorona follows. In some versions of the story, Llorona is not simply a tragic spirit, but a jealous one. She targets young women who remind her of her old self, beautiful, loved, or happy. She's said to follow them at night, whispering warnings of betrayal, heartbreak, and loss. In this sense, she becomes a reflection of emotional pain passed down from one generation to another, a reminder that unhealed wounds can continue to haunt, even after death. But the most terrifying aspect of Llorona is her unpredictability. She is a spirit trapped between worlds, driven by emotions so strong that they have outlived her body. Some nights she is gentle, weeping softly by the river, looking for the children she lost. Other nights she is violent, filled with rage and jealousy, lashing out at the living. People say that when her scream turns from sorrow to anger, the air becomes cold, the water stills, and the shadows grow long. If you ever feel that sudden chill near a river at night, the legend warns, leave immediately. Even today, the legend continues to evolve. Movies, books, and modern retellings show her in many forms, but at her core, she remains the same, a mother cursed by her own actions, destined to wander forever. Her story survives because it touches something universal, the fear of loss, the weight of regret, and the raw power of grief. We see ourselves in her sadness, her mistakes, her longing for a past she can never undo. Llorona reminds us that legends are not just stories, they are mirrors. They show us what humans are capable of when emotion overtakes reason. They warn us that certain actions cannot be taken back. And most importantly, they teach us that some pain never fades, not even with death. And in the quiet hours of the night, when the world is still and the sound of water echoes through the darkness, some say you can still hear her weeping. A soft, broken voice, drifting across the river, searching, calling, forever wandering.
Kuchisake-Onna is one of Japan's most terrifying urban legends, a story whispered by school children, feared by adults, and passed down for generations. Her name means the slit-mouthed woman, and the moment you hear that, the image forms in your mind. A woman with a wide, unnatural smile carved from ear to ear. But what makes this legend truly disturbing isn't just her appearance. It's the quiet way she approaches, the questions she asks, and the impossible choices she gives her victims. To understand why this legend has survived for so long in Japanese culture, we need to go back to its many possible origins, each one darker than the last. One of the most well-known versions says she was once a beautiful woman during Japan's feudal era. Some stories say she was the wife or mistress of a samurai. She was admired for her charm and elegance, loved by many men, and desired by almost everyone who saw her. But beauty often attracts jealousy, and in her case, it attracted something far worse: violence. According to the legend, her samurai husband became convinced she was being unfaithful. Whether this was true or just a result of jealousy and paranoia, we don't know, but the legend says that in a fit of rage, he grabbed his sword, forced it across her face, and carved a deep slit from one ear to the other. As she screamed and begged for mercy, he asked her a question: "Who will think you're beautiful now?" That moment twisted her spirit with pain, anger, and humiliation. When she finally died, her broken soul stayed behind, becoming a vengeful ghost that hunts the living. But there is another version, one that takes place much later, during the 1970s. This version says she wasn't a samurai's wife,
but a woman who was attacked by someone with a pair of scissors. Some say it was a criminal, others claim it was an escaped mental patient. Whatever the cause, the result was the same. A woman brutally disfigured, cut across her cheeks, left to die. After her death, strange sightings began to spread through Japanese towns. Children reported seeing a woman wearing a long coat and a surgical mask. At first, she looked normal, like anyone trying to avoid an illness. But then she would ask a question, a simple question that made their blood run cold. Am I beautiful? One of the most disturbing things about Kuchisake-Onna is how she approaches her victims. Unlike many spirits that haunt dark forests or abandoned houses, she appears in everyday places. On the street, in alleys, near schools, even outside convenience stores. She blends into the environment so well that you would never guess you were looking at something dangerous. She wears a beige or brown coat, long straight hair, and a standard medical mask. In Japan, this is completely normal. People often wear masks for health reasons, so nothing about her looks suspicious at first glance. Her disguise is her greatest weapon. As she steps closer, she asks the victim, "Am I beautiful?" Most people answer yes, out of politeness or fear. That's when she slowly removes her mask, revealing her mutilated face. The long, jagged slits stretching from one ear to the other, exposing her teeth and tongue, forming a twisted mockery of a smile. She asks the same question again, but now in a much darker tone. Am I beautiful now? At this point, the legend becomes a cruel game. If the victim says no, she kills them instantly, usually with a large pair of scissors she carries under her coat. If they say yes, she makes them beautiful, like her. In other words, she slices their mouth to match her own. There is no escape, no right answer. The legend is designed to trap you in fear. But like many ghost stories, people eventually created escape methods. In the playgrounds of Japan, children began inventing tricks to survive her encounter. One popular method said that if you answered her question with something confusing, like, "You look average," or "You look normal," she would freeze for a moment, giving you time to run away. Another method said that if you threw candy on the ground, she would get distracted, giving you a chance to escape. This might sound strange, but in Japanese folklore, many spirits can be tricked or slowed down by confusing them. Even fear needs logic, and kids naturally search for ways to fight the impossible. Sightings of Kuchisake-Onna became so widespread in the late 1970s that Japanese schools actually warned students to walk home in groups. Newspapers featured stories claiming she had been spotted near playgrounds. Some people even reported seeing a woman matching the description running across rooftops at night. Whether these stories were real or just mass hysteria, one thing is clear: the legend spread faster than any official explanation could stop it. Rumors traveled from town to town, growing bigger and more frightening with each retelling. Soon, the slit-mouthed woman became part of Japanese national imagination. But the legend didn't stay in the 70s. It continued evolving. In the 2000s, new reports surfaced online. People claimed to see her near bus stops or train stations late at night. Students on social media shared warnings that a masked woman had been wandering near local schools. Many of these stories were proven fake or exaggerated, but the fear they created was very real. The character of Kuchisake-Onna became a symbol of urban anxiety, fear of strangers, fear of violence, fear of the unknown hiding behind a mask. And in a world where masks became more common, especially during health crises, the legend felt disturbingly modern. Psychologists have suggested that the legend reflects deeper fears in society. A masked figure represents hidden intentions. A disfigured smile represents the horror of what lies beneath the surface. And the question, "Am I beautiful?" plays on our fear of judgment, appearance, and insecurity. It's a simple question, but in the context of the legend, it becomes a trap. It turns everyday politeness into a deadly test. This is what makes Kuchisake-Onna so terrifying.
She is not a monster hiding in the shadows, she is a nightmare disguised as a normal person. Culturally, the legend has taken many forms. She appears in movies, manga, anime, and horror books. Her image, long coat, mask, scissors, and a carved grin, has become iconic. But even with all these modern versions, the core idea remains the same. A woman wronged in life returns with vengeance and obsession. The fear of beauty, jealousy, and violence all mixed together to create a ghost that feels both old and new. Unlike ancient spirits tied to temples or forests, Kuchisake-Onna walks the streets. She belongs to the urban world. She belongs to us. Some believe she symbolizes the pressure placed on appearance, especially for women. Beauty becomes both a blessing and a curse. The more society values appearance, the more terrifying it becomes to lose it. Her story is a brutal exaggeration of that fear. Others believe she represents the consequences of violence and abuse, wounds that never heal, trauma that continues even after death. In a way, Kuchisake-Onna is a reminder of how cruelty creates monsters, not from magic, but from suffering. Even today, her legend continues to grow. People share new versions on YouTube, TikTok, and horror forums. Some claim she can appear anywhere there are dark roads or empty streets. Others say you might hear her voice before you see her. A quiet whisper. A simple question. Am I beautiful? And even though we know it's just a story, part of us still feels uneasy. That's the power of legends. They survive because they touch something deeper inside us, something we can't easily explain. Kuchisake-Onna remains one of Japan's most disturbing legends, not because she is the scariest monster, but because she could be anyone. A stranger on the sidewalk, a masked woman passing by, a figure approaching you at night. She hides in the familiar, making ordinary life feel dangerous. And in the quiet moments, when you're walking alone, the legend reminds you of one unsettling truth. You never really know what face lies beneath the mask.
The legend of the black-eyed children is one of the most unsettling modern myths ever recorded. It stands out not because it is old or tied to ancient tradition, but because it feels disturbingly real. Something that could happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. Unlike many legends that come from dusty history or forgotten villages, the black-eyed children come from a world we recognize. Quiet suburbs, lonely highways, dimly lit porches, and cold winter nights. Their story begins not in the distant past, but in the 1990s, when people first started reporting encounters with strange children who appeared at their doors or approached their cars late at night. These children looked normal at first glance, until you noticed their eyes. Completely black. No pupils. No whites. Just endless darkness staring back at you. From that moment, anyone who faced them felt one terrifying truth. These children were not human. The first widely known encounter came from a journalist named Brian Bethel in 1996. Bethel described parking his car outside a movie theater in Texas when two boys approached him. They knocked on his window and calmly asked for a ride home so they could get money to see a movie. He felt uneasy the moment he saw them, although he couldn't explain why at first. The boys spoke politely, but something felt wrong, a deep instinctive fear rising inside him. Then he noticed their eyes, jet black, glossy, like two holes leading into nothingness. Even before he saw their eyes, Bethel said he felt as though he was being pressured or manipulated, as if the children were trying to push into his mind, urging him to agree. When he refused, the children grew irritated. Their voices changed. They insisted he had to let them in. They repeated that they couldn't come inside unless he invited them. The moment he drove away in panic, he felt a sudden wave of cold, as if he had just escaped something he could not understand. That story spread like wildfire, marking the beginning of a phenomenon. But what makes the black-eyed children legend so terrifying is that Bethel's encounter was only the beginning. Over the years, people from different places, different cultures, and different backgrounds have reported almost identical experiences. The children always travel in pairs or small groups. They always show up when the victim is alone. They always appear at night, and they always ask the same thing: let us in. Sometimes they say they need to use the phone. Sometimes they claim they're lost. Sometimes they say their parents will be home soon. Their words are simple, polite, and strangely calm, like rehearsed lines. But behind their calm tone is something that feels deeply unnatural, something that sends a chill down the spine of anyone who encounters them. One of the most disturbing details in many stories is the way people describe the feeling that comes over them. Before they even notice the children's eyes, their bodies react. Goosebumps, fear, panic, a sensation like prey being watched by a predator. It's as though the human brain senses danger long before the eyes confirm it. Witnesses often say that the children speak in a monotone voice, emotionless, as if they are reciting something memorized. They never show fear or urgency even when they claim to be in danger. Their clothing is sometimes outdated, like something from another era, or completely plain. But the most unsettling thing is that the children cannot enter unless they are invited. This rule appears in almost every encounter. This detail connects them to old supernatural folklore, especially myths about vampires or demonic beings. In many cultures, evil entities cannot cross a threshold without permission. But why would children, creatures traditionally associated with innocence, need permission to enter? That question is part of what makes this legend so haunting. They do not seem like children at all. They seem like something pretending to be children. Something that has observed humans and learned how to mimic them, but not perfectly enough to hide the wrongness beneath. One account from an elderly couple described how two black-eyed children came to their home during a heavy snowstorm. The children claimed they were lost and needed to come inside to wait for their parents. The couple hesitated, but the storm was harsh, and the children insisted. The couple eventually let them in. The moment they crossed the threshold, the house suddenly seemed darker. The husband went to prepare hot drinks, but his hands shook uncontrollably. The wife noticed their eyes, pitch black, expressionless. Her cot hissed violently, something it had never done. The children sat silently on the couch, not touching the drinks, not shivering from the cold, just staring. She said it felt like the house itself was holding its breath. When she asked where their parents were, the children simply said, "They're coming." A few minutes later, both adults felt dizzy, like the air was being drained from the room. Then the children stood up, walked to the door, and without saying goodbye, simply left. When the couple looked outside, the children were gone. No footprints in the snow, no sound, nothing. After that night, both adults began experiencing strange nosebleeds, headaches, and electronic disturbances for weeks. While these stories are chilling, what makes the legend truly disturbing is how consistent the behaviors are across different encounters. The children always seem emotionless. Their speech is always slightly off. Their clothes are inappropriate for the weather. They appear suddenly and vanish just as quickly. And their eyes, those soulless black voids, never change, never blink, never show any sign of humanity. Theories about who or what they are vary widely. Some people believe they are extraterrestrial beings, especially because their appearance resembles descriptions of gray aliens with their large dark eyes. Others think they're demonic entities, using the appearance of children to gain trust. Some say they're ghosts of children who died tragically, cursed to wander the earth. And a few believe they are interdimensional beings, slipping through cracks between worlds. Whatever the explanation, the legend carries a sense of dread, because no theory feels comforting. Every theory makes them frightening, not less. There's also something symbolic about the black-eyed children that psychologists often discuss. Children represent innocence, trust, and vulnerability, but in this legend, those qualities are inverted. Instead of innocence, we see manipulation. Instead of vulnerability, we see power. Instead of trust, we see danger. The black-eyed children take something familiar and twist it just enough to make it horrifying. They are uncanny, almost human, but not quite. And the human brain is deeply disturbed by anything that is almost human, but subtly wrong. One of the most important aspects of the legend is the rule that they need permission to enter. This detail is not just supernatural, but it also reflects a psychological fear of letting danger into our safe spaces. Your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, a place where the outside world cannot harm you. But the idea that something dark and unnatural stands on your porch, politely asking to come inside, challenges that feeling of safety. It forces you to imagine what it would be like to open your door to something that looks harmless, but feels deeply threatening. Even today, the black-eyed children remain one of the most popular topics in paranormal communities. People continue to post sightings online, describing late-night knocks at their door, strange feelings of being watched, or the distant sight of children with black eyes standing under street lamps. Whether these stories are true, misinterpretations, or urban legends amplified by the internet, the fear they create is very real. The legend survives because it taps into a primal fear, the fear of the unknown wearing a familiar face. In the end, the black-eyed children remain one of the most disturbing modern legends because they challenge our instincts. They ask for our trust, but everything about them tells us to run. They look like children, but something inside us screams that they are predators. Their eyes, empty and dark, feel like windows to a place we should never look into. And perhaps that is the greatest horror of all. The idea that one day, late at night, you might hear a knock on your door, and when you open it, you'll see two children standing there in the dim light. They'll ask to come inside, they'll speak softly and politely, and before you even notice their eyes, fear will already be rising inside you, warning you that something is terribly, terribly wrong.
The Pontianak is one of Southeast Asia's most chilling supernatural legends, feared across Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and Brunei. Her story is whispered among villagers, shared by taxi drivers on late-night roads, and told by elders who swear they've heard her cry echoing through the palm trees. The Pontianak is not a simple ghost or a vague spirit. She is the restless soul of a woman who died while pregnant, returning from the grave with a hunger for revenge, a thirst for blood, and a voice capable of freezing the bravest person in place. Her presence is said to be announced by the soft scent of frangipani flowers, a sweet perfume that becomes a warning of death. To understand why this legend still terrifies people today, we must go back to her origins. A tragic tale of betrayal, suffering, and unending rage. The story begins with a woman who died in childbirth, or more commonly, a woman who is murdered while carrying an unborn child. In many versions, she is wronged by her lover, abandoned by her partner, or killed by someone close to her. The pain, fear, and heartbreak of her final moments do not simply disappear with death. Instead, they transform her spirit into something far more powerful and terrifying. Because her death was filled with injustice, her soul cannot rest. Instead, she becomes a Pontianak, an undead creature fueled by rage and sorrow, wandering the earth in search of victims, especially men who remind her of the one who betrayed her. Her appearance shifts like a nightmare. Sometimes she is seen as a beautiful woman with long black hair and a flowing white dress, her pale face glowing softly under the moonlight. She looks gentle, fragile, almost inviting, but this beauty is only the mask she uses to lure her prey. When she reveals her true form, the Pontianak becomes a horrifying sight. Her long hair turns wild and tangled. Her face twists into something monstrous. Her nails grow long and sharp like claws. Her skin becomes pale and stretched. And worst of all, her eyes, sunken, empty, full of hatred, lock onto her victim. It is said that once she chooses someone, escape becomes almost impossible. The transformation is part of the legend's terror. She is not just a ghost. She is a predator hiding behind a beautiful disguise, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The Pontianak is known for her distinct cry. This sound is so important to the legend that entire communities have learned to interpret it. People say that if you hear her crying softly, like a distant sob,
she is close, right behind you. But if her cry is loud, shrill, and echoing through the trees, she is far away. This reversal of sound, quiet meaning near, loud meaning far, is what makes her cry so terrifying. It plays with your instincts. Instead of running away from the loud cry, you suddenly realize the soft, fragile weeping nearby might mean she is already watching you. Many villagers claim that this cry is not just a sound, but a warning. Animals go silent when she is near. The wind stops, the night grows colder, and then the frangipani scent arrives, sweet, flowery, unexpected. The more intense the smell, the closer she is. Another disturbing detail of the Pontianak legend is how she chooses her victims. She preys especially on men who behave badly toward women. In many stories, she targets men who cheat, hurt, or disrespect the women in their lives. This moral pattern makes her more than just a monster. She is a dark reminder of consequences. She is the embodiment of forgotten guilt, a shadow that hunts those who think their wrongdoings are hidden. But in other stories, she hunts any unfortunate person who crosses her path, especially those traveling alone at night. Motorcyclists, taxi drivers, security guards, and people walking home from work have claimed to see her on quiet roads lined with palm trees. Some say she perches on branches, watching silently. Others say she stands on the roadside, looking lost, waiting for someone to stop and help. Those who offer help rarely escape. One of the most famous details about the Pontianak is her method of attack. Witnesses and storytellers say she often announces herself with a sudden gust of cold wind. Then she appears, sometimes in front of the victim, sometimes behind. In many tales, she goes for the stomach first, ripping it open to devour organs, especially the heart and liver. This gruesome detail reflects traditional beliefs about spirits feeding on life force and blood. Her long nails, sharp like daggers, can slice through flesh effortlessly. Some say she kills quickly. Others say she toys with her victims, appearing and disappearing, letting fear build before delivering the final strike. Her cruelty is part of what makes the legend unforgettable. Strangely, there is one known weakness often mentioned in older stories. People say that if you're trapped by a Pontianak, you can attempt to distract or weaken her by stuffing a nail into the hole at the back of her neck, right at the base of her skull. This supposedly transforms her back into a normal woman, temporarily breaking her supernatural form. But this detail also carries a disturbing message. It implies that even in death, even in her monstrous state, her body still remembers the pain of her past. The nail represents control, forcing her to return to a vulnerable human state. However, removing the nail causes her to revert to her monstrous form again. This weakness adds a layer of tragedy to her story. She is not a creature that wants to be a monster. She was made into one by suffering she never deserved. The Pontianak legend is deeply tied to Southeast Asian culture. It reflects societal fears about childbirth, mistreatment of women, and the consequences of violence. In older times, childbirth was extremely dangerous. Many women died during labor. Their spirits, filled with grief for the life they could not live and the child they never met, were believed to roam the earth. These beliefs gave birth to the image of the Pontianak, a ghost shaped by pain and sorrow. But beyond the cultural background, what makes the Pontianak legend so powerful is how it blends fear with empathy. She is terrifying, but she is also a victim. Her rage is born from betrayal. Her violence comes from pain, and her haunting presence is a reminder of the suffering she endured. Modern sightings keep the legend alive. Taxi drivers in Malaysia tell stories about picking up a woman in white who disappears mid-ride. Motorcyclists claim they've seen her standing under dim streetlights, her hair covering her face. Some say she asks for a ride home, only for her face to twist into something grotesque halfway through the journey. Others report seeing her perched in banana trees, which are often considered her chosen place to rest. Even today, People say banana trees are avoided at night because the Pontianak might be hiding among their leaves. In Southeast Asia, this is not just a children's story. It is a living legend that people still fear. The Pontianak endures because she taps into something universal: fear of the unknown, fear of betrayal, fear of walking alone at night, and fear of beauty hiding danger. She is a symbol of tragedy and terror, a reminder of the terrible things that happen when suffering goes unanswered. And even now, when people hear a soft weeping in the night or smell frangipani in the wind, a small part of them wonders if she is near. Because the Pontianak is not just a legend. She is a warning, a shadow shaped by pain, a voice crying in the dark. And once you hear her, you'll never forget her.
The legend of the Night Marchers is one of the most feared and respected stories in Hawaiian culture. Unlike many ghost tales meant to scare children or entertain tourists, this legend is treated with deep seriousness by the people of Hawaii. The Night Marchers, known in Hawaiian as Huakaipo, are not monsters, demons, or evil spirits. They are the ghostly warriors of ancient Hawaii, forever walking the paths they marched in life. They appear as a phantom army crossing through valleys, beaches, forests, and even modern neighborhoods. Their purpose is not random haunting. It is a continuation of their royal duty, protecting chiefs, guarding sacred lands, and honoring traditions that existed long before the modern world. Yet despite their noble origins, the Night Marchers are terrifying to witness. Their arrival is said to shake the air, silence the animals, and send cold fear through anyone unlucky enough to cross their path. And for the living, one thing is absolutely clear: you must never stand in their way. According to Hawaiian tradition, the Night Marchers appear during specific nights, especially on sacred moon phases, stormy evenings, or ancient Hawaiian holidays. They travel in lines, sometimes long, sometimes short, carrying torches that glow like fire in the dark. Witnesses describe seeing dozens of flickering lights moving in perfect formation across hills and shoreline, even when no living people are present. Others say they heard chanting, drumming, the blowing of conch shells, and the rhythmic sound of footsteps marching in unison. These sounds often begin softly, almost like distant thunder, but slowly they grow louder and closer, until it feels like an army is passing right in front of you, even if you cannot see anyone. The idea that the spirits of trained, battle-ready warriors still march across Hawaii today makes this legend one of the most awe-inspiring and chilling in the world. The origins of the Night Marchers stretch back hundreds of years to ancient Hawaii, a time when chiefs, called ali'i, held incredible power. These chiefs were so sacred that ordinary people were forbidden from looking directly at them. Breaking this rule could result in death. To protect these chiefs, warriors marched in front, behind, and around them. Their processions were filled with chants, drums, and torches. When these high-ranking chiefs traveled at night, their warriors marched with them to keep the path clear. Over time, these traditions became so deeply rooted in Hawaiian culture that even after the warriors died, their spirits continued the march. The Night Marchers are believed to be the ghostly version of these real ceremonial processions, still honoring their chiefs in death as they did in life. Many stories describe what the Night Marchers look like. They are usually seen as tall, strong, intimidating warrior figures wearing ancient Hawaiian armor. Some carry spears, others carry clubs or stone weapons called pahaku. Many wear carved helmets and capes made from feathers of rare birds, symbols of high status. Their torches glow with a supernatural light, brighter than fire, almost like a burning spirit. In some rare accounts, a chief, glowing with an otherworldly radiance, is carried on a platform called a palama. When a chief is present, the march becomes even more intense. The chanting grows louder, the drums shake the ground, and the air becomes almost too heavy to breathe. As frightening as their appearance is, their behavior is even more terrifying. The Night Marchers do not wander, they move with purpose.
They follow ancient pathways, routes that once connected sacred sites, battlegrounds, temples, and royal grounds. The problem is that many of these paths now intersect with modern homes, roads, and hotels. Hawaii has developed over time, but the night marchers do not care about construction or property lines. For them, the old path is still there. If your house happens to sit on one of these ancient routes, you may hear them marching through your living room at night. Many residents believe that unexplained noises, footsteps, torches flickering, chanting, are not ghosts haunting a home, but warriors simply passing through. People who have encountered the night marchers often describe a strange heaviness in the air, like the atmosphere suddenly thickens, dogs grow quiet, birds stop singing, the wind pauses. Then the distant drum beats begin. Some describe seeing glowing lines of light moving across the hillsides. Others claim they saw shadows marching in formation, even though no living people were present. A few have reported smelling smoke or hearing the conch shell, a signal used in battle, echoing through the valley. But the most chilling encounters are those where people feel a sudden urge to hide, kneel, or lie flat on the ground. According to tradition, this instinct is the key to survival. In Hawaiian belief, the night marchers do not intentionally kill the innocent. They're not evil. However, they are so sacred, so spiritually powerful, that looking directly at them or standing in their path can cause instant death. But there is a way to survive. If you hear them coming, you must lie face down on the ground, close your eyes, and remain completely still. This position shows respect and prevents you from accidentally looking upon the chief or interrupting the procession. Some say the spirits may pass through you, leaving you unharmed. Others say the warriors will walk around you if they sense respect. A few believe that if you have an ancestor among the marchers, the ancestor will protect you. But one thing is agreed upon by almost everyone familiar with the legend. Do not run. Do not look. Do not speak. And never challenge their presence. There are many modern stories of night marcher encounters, and they all share similar elements. Some security guards working at remote sites claim they've heard chanting at 3 a.m. Others say they've seen torches flickering in the distance, moving in a straight line across cliffs where no human could walk. A famous incident involved a group of construction workers who saw a line of lights moving across a hill, accompanied by drumming. The workers froze in fear. The next day, some refused to continue working on the site unless certain rituals were performed to respect the spirits. Another story describes a man driving home late at night on a deserted road. Suddenly, he felt a wave of dread wash over him. His headlights flickered. Then he saw dozens of ghostly figures crossing the road in front of him, completely silent except for the faint sound of chanting. He shut his eyes, trembling, and when he opened them again, the road was empty. Many Hawaiians believe that the night marchers appear at places with deep spiritual energy: old temples, battlegrounds, burial grounds, cliffs, beaches, and lava fields. Some homes in Hawaii are even built with special designs to allow spirits to pass through without disturbing the living. For example, houses may have open pathways or specific gaps that align with ancient routes. These are not superstitions to locals. They are acts of respect for forces older than memory. What makes the Night Marchers legend so powerful is that it is both terrifying and deeply sacred. These spirits are not mindless ghosts. They represent a proud, ancient culture that existed long before modern civilization. Their marches are not random acts of haunting. They are ceremonies. They are reminders that the past is not dead. It still walks. It still chants. And it still demands respect. And in Hawaiian culture, respect is everything. In the end, the Night Marchers remain one of the most chilling legends, not just because of fear, but because of reverence. They are the spirits of warriors who lived and died with honor, continuing their duties in death. Their torches burn with memory, their footsteps echo with history, and their chants travel through the night like warnings carried on the wind. Anyone who hears them knows that the past has awakened. And if you ever find yourself alone on a Hawaiian night, with the wind still, the world silent, and the faint sound of drumming approaching, remember the only rule that matters. Do not look up. Do not stand. Fall to the ground and let the night marchers pass.
The story of the Dullahan begins on the quiet, lonely roads of rural Ireland, where mist rolls across the hills and old stone walls cut through fields like the bones of an ancient creature. On nights when the moon hangs low and the wind carries the smell of rain, some people say you can hear hooves in the distance, slow, deliberate, and heavy, as if the rider has no need to rush. That is because the rider is not chasing anyone. The rider already knows who they have come for. In Irish folklore, few beings inspire more dread than the Dullahan, the headless horseman whose appearance signals only one thing: death. This legend is not just a frightening story told to children. It is a deep, haunting reflection of Ireland's relationship with mortality, the supernatural, and the idea that death itself walks among us. The Dullahan is often imagined as a man on a massive black horse, though sometimes it is said to be a woman. What never changes is the missing head. Instead of sitting on the rider's shoulders, the head is carried under one arm, held like a lantern, glowing faintly with a sickly yellow light. The skin of this head is stretched tight like leather left under the sun, and its expression is twisted into a wide, unnatural grin, as though it has seen every secret of the living and found none of them comforting. The eyes of the head are perhaps the most terrifying part, small, darting, and always searching. No one escapes its gaze. The mouth moves sometimes, whispering names in a voice too soft to hear clearly, yet loud enough to freeze a person's blood. The Dullahan rides a horse that is just as unnatural as its rider. It has flaming eyes and nostrils that spit sparks. The horse's hooves strike the ground with the sound of thunder, even when it walks slowly. Some versions of the story describe the horse's flesh as decaying, rotting away as if it has crawled out of a grave to carry its master. Others say it is made of pure shadow. Many Irish villagers believe that if you heard the Dullahan's horse on the road behind you, you had only seconds to act. You could not run. You could not hide. You could only pray it was not your name the Dullahan had come to collect. To understand where this terrifying figure came from, we must look back to ancient Ireland, long before Christianity arrived, when the land was ruled by gods, spirits, and powerful beings tied to the land itself. Scholars believe the Dullahan may be a remnant of old Celtic death gods, particularly Crom Dubh or Crom Cruach, a deity once worshipped through human sacrifices. Crom demanded offerings in exchange for good harvests and protection. When Christianity swept through Ireland, sacrifices were banned, and Crom Dubh was demonized, transformed from a god into something darker. The Dullahan is believed to be the echo of this ancient figure, a supernatural reminder of the old blood rites, twisted into a new form that haunts the roads instead of the altars. This origin gives the Dullahan a terrible purpose. It is not a mindless monster, it is a collector. Its role is to announce death, and in some cases, to take the soul itself. According to legend, the Dullahan never rides without reason. When it wishes down the road, cloak fluttering behind it like a shadow torn loose from the night, it is seeking one person whose time in the living world is over. Some say the Dullahan calls out the person's name using the mouth of its severed head. The moment the name is spoken, the soul is torn from their body. Others claim the Dullahan carries a whip made from a human spine and uses it to strike people down. Whatever version you hear, the message is the same. When the Dullahan appears, no wall, door, or lock can stop it. One of the most unsettling details about this legend is that the Dullahan hates being watched. Anyone who tries to look at it or follow it risks a violent response. Many stories describe the Dullahan stopping its horse, turning its head, literally turning the head that it carries in its hand towards the observer. The head's eyes glow, and then the Dullahan lashes out with the spine whip, blinding or even killing anyone foolish enough to stare. In some cases, the Dullahan might fling a bucket of blood at onlookers as a warning. If the blood lands on you, it means you are next. Despite its terrifying abilities, the Dullahan does have one strange weakness. It fears gold. Even the smallest amount can drive it away. People in old Ireland carried gold coins or gold jewelry for protection when walking at night. Farmers working in dark fields would sometimes wear a gold pin on their clothes just in case. This detail gives the story a curious balance. Even the most unstoppable creature in folklore has something that can stop it, even if only for a moment. Gold is a symbol of the sun, of purity, of something that cannot rot or darken. In a way, it represents life itself standing against the darkness of death. There are many stories passed down through generations about encounters with the Dullahan. In one tale from County Sligo, a young couple was walking home late at night when they heard a distant sound like thunder. They stopped and listened. The sound came again, hooves getting closer. The woman grabbed her husband's arm, whispering that they should take cover, but it was too late. The Dullahan appeared at the top of the hill, its head glowing like a lantern, its grin chilled with a cruel joy. The couple ran, but the horse closed the distance in seconds. Just as the Dullahan raised its spine whip, the woman remembered the small gold coin she kept in her pocket for emergencies. She threw it on the ground, and instantly the Dullahan screamed, covering its exposed neck as if burned. The horse reared, smoke rising from its nostrils, and together they vanished into the dark. The couple survived, but neither spoke of the encounter again, not even to each other. In another story, a blacksmith traveling alone late at night saw a figure standing on the road ahead. At first, he thought it was a traveler who had lost his way, but as he approached, the figure turned, revealing that its head was not on its shoulders but tucked under one arm. The blacksmith froze in horror. The Dullahan raised its head, held it high, and its eyes locked onto him. He tried to turn his horse around, but his horse refused to move, trembling violently. The Dullahan whispered a name, the blacksmith's neighbor, an old man who lived alone at the edge of the village. The blacksmith raced home and told his neighbor what he had seen. The old man listened calmly and simply nodded. Before dawn, he passed away in his sleep. The blacksmith never traveled at night again. These stories shaped the behavior of entire communities. In rural Ireland, people avoided long journeys after sunset. They stayed indoors when fog gathered along the roads. If someone heard a knock on their door late at night, they waited silent and still, afraid of who or what might be waiting outside. The Dullahan became a reminder to respect the night, to accept the mysteries of the world without trying to control them, and to understand that death does not always come quietly. In a deeper sense, the Dullahan is a symbol of life's unavoidable end. Many cultures have personified death as a figure, the Grim Reaper, the Angel of Death, the Shinigami, but the Dullahan stands apart. It does not negotiate, does not persuade, does not offer riddles or bargains. It arrives with certainty, like the ticking of a clock. Its head, with its permanent grin, seems to mock the living for believing they can outrun fate. Its horse, unstoppable and unearthly, represents the passage of time that no one can fight. Even its fear of gold can be understood symbolically, because while death always wins eventually, life still has moments of victory. As legends spread across the world, the Dullahan influenced stories and modern culture. The most famous adaptation is the Headless Horseman in Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, though the Irish version is far darker and older. In Ireland, the Dullahan is not a ghost of a warrior or a prankster spirit. It is a supernatural force tied to the land and its ancient past. For many Irish families, especially those living in rural areas, this story was not fiction. It was a caution, a warning, a reminder that death walks quietly, but not always silently. Even today, people report hearing phantom hooves on certain old roads, especially near hills, cliffs, and ancient burial mounds. Whether these are simply echoes of imagination or something more, the legend continues to live. It remains alive because it speaks to something universal, the fear of losing control, the fear of being watched by something we cannot understand, and the fear that death may not come gently. In the end, the Dullahan is not just a monster. It is a story shaped by centuries of belief, woven from fear, tradition, and human memory. It is a reminder that every culture has its own way of facing the darkness. And in Ireland, the darkness rides on a black horse, carrying its own head, smiling at the living with the knowledge that someday it will return.
Deep in the darkest forests of Eastern Europe, where the trees grow so tall they blot out the sun and the wind carries whispers instead of sound, there is a place most people fear to approach. Travelers say that once you cross a certain line of pines, the air turns heavier, colder, and strangely alive, as if the forest itself is watching you. Hidden somewhere within that endless maze of branches and shadows is a hut perched on giant chicken legs, rocking gently as though waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to draw near. This is the home of Baba Yaga, one of the oldest and most unsettling figures in Slavic folklore. She is not a simple witch, not a straightforward villain, and not a predictable monster. Baba Yaga is something far more dangerous, a force of nature disguised as an old woman, a creature that can bless or destroy, teach or punish, guide or devour. Her legend survives because it taps into the deepest human fears, the fear of the unknown, the fear of growing up, and the fear of facing tests we are not prepared for. The first thing people notice about Baba Yaga is her strange appearance. She is usually described as a thin, ancient woman with bones sticking out beneath her parchment-like skin, her nose long and sharp enough to scrape the ceiling when she sleeps. Some stories call her the bony-legged one because her limbs look skeletal, as though she is halfway between life and decay. Her hair is wiry and tangled, her teeth are pointed like broken stones, and her eyes glow with a hunger that is both literal and symbolic. Baba Yaga is terrifying, not because she looks like a typical witch, but because she looks like someone who has existed far longer than any human should, long enough to see civilizations rise and fall, long enough to learn secrets no person should ever know. She travels in a mortar, pushing herself across the forest floor, or the sky, using a pestle as an oar. Behind her, she sweeps away her tracks with a broom made of silver birch, ensuring that no one can follow her unless she wants them to. This detail, strange yet vivid, symbolizes the way she moves between worlds. She is part of the human world, yet never fully within it. She can appear at the edges of villages or deep in the wild. She can be summoned accidentally, or she can arrive uninvited. Some stories say the trees bend away from her as she glides past, recognizing an ancient authority. Others claim the forest itself obeys her commands, twisting its branches to block or guide travelers. At the center of her myth stands her hut, the famous chicken leg house. Unlike ordinary homes, this one never sits still. It spins on its tall, bird-like legs, turning slowly until it is told to stop. To make it stand still, one must say, "Hut, hut, turn your back to the forest, face the front to me." Only then will the house settle, allowing the visitor to approach. The door rarely opens on its own. Sometimes it creaks open slowly, revealing warm light and a table full of food. Other times, it remains locked, its windows glowing red like eyes. This hut is not simply a home, it is a living creature, a guardian, and a test. It reflects Baba Yaga's unpredictable nature, welcoming one moment, deadly the next. Despite her frightening form and reputation, Baba Yaga's origins are even more complex. Many scholars believe that long before she became a witch in terrifying children's stories, she was a type of ancient Slavic goddess, possibly a guardian of the underworld or a spirit of the forest. She was connected to birth, death, and rebirth, cycles that ancient people respected and feared. With time, as religions changed and societies shifted, these old goddesses did not disappear. Instead, they transformed. Baba Yaga became a mixture of old spiritual power and new cultural fears. She is both a grandmother figure and a predator, both a wise guide and a merciless executioner. In this sense, she represents life itself, beautiful, dangerous, unpredictable. Most stories about Baba Yaga begin when someone becomes lost. A young girl searching for fire, a prince wandering through the woods, a stepdaughter thrown out of her home. These characters stumble into Baba Yaga's domain by accident or necessity. When they knock on her door, she might demand impossible tasks, sorting a mountain of seeds overnight, cleaning a house that moves on its own, or capturing wild spirits. If the visitor succeeds, Baba Yaga sometimes rewards them with magical gifts, a glowing skull that reveals truth, a horse that runs faster than the wind, or knowledge that changes their fate. If they fail, she does not scold or imprison them. She simply cooks them and eats them.
In the stories, she never hides this. She often announces her intentions in a calm, matter-of-fact tone. "You have come to me. I will eat you." This blunt honesty is part of her unsettling nature. She does not trick you. She tests you, and she always keeps her word. One of the most famous tales involving Baba Yaga is the story of Vestalisa, a young girl sent into the forest by her cruel stepmother to retrieve fire from Baba Yaga's hut. Most people would refuse such a task, but Vestalisa carries a magical doll given to her by her mother, which protects her and whispers advice. When Baba Yaga demands that she complete impossible chores, the doll helps her finish them. Impressed but suspicious, Baba Yaga questions how she succeeded. Vestalisa admits that she carries her mother's blessing. Suddenly, Baba Yaga recoils. She cannot touch someone protected by the spirit of a loving parent. In the end, she gives Vestalisa a skull filled with fire that later destroys the wicked stepmother. This story shows the duality of Baba Yaga. She is terrifying, yet she respects strength, truth, and purity of heart. In other tales, Baba Yaga is not impressed so easily. A brave hero might attempt to steal from her, only to be chased across the forest by her flying mortar. A child might approach her hut, only to hear the bones of previous victims rattling inside. Sometimes Baba Yaga is not alone. She has 3 sisters, also called Baba Yaga, each one more unpredictable than the last. Whether this means she is 3 beings or 3 aspects of the same being is unclear, adding another layer to her mystery. There is a deeper meaning to the role of Baba Yaga in folklore. She represents the ancient fear of the forest, an untamed place where humans have no control. In old times, the forest was both the source of life, food, shelter, and wood, and a place of danger, wolves, spirits, getting lost. Baba Yaga embodies this contradiction. She is the protector of the wild, punishing those who walk carelessly, lie, or attempt to take what they do not deserve. At the same time, she helps those who approach with humility, patience, and cleverness. She tests your character, not your strength. Her cannibalistic nature is also symbolic. Eating someone means consuming their essence, their power, their potential. In mythological terms, this represents transformation, being reborn or growing into a stronger version of oneself. Many Baba Yaga tales involve young protagonists who leave her hut wiser, braver, and more capable. Surviving her tests is a rite of passage, a symbolic journey from childhood into adulthood. In this way, Baba Yaga is both the destroyer and the teacher, the one who threatens life and the one who grants new life. Even in modern times, Baba Yaga remains a powerful symbol in Eastern Europe and beyond. She appears in literature, films, video games, and even psychological studies. She is not portrayed as a simple villain, but as a reminder that not all danger is evil. Some danger is necessary. Some fear pushes people to grow. Some challenges force people to understand themselves. Baba Yaga teaches that the world does not owe anyone an easy path. Rewards must be earned, truth must be faced, and courage must be found within. Yet the fear she inspires is real. Imagine walking alone in a forest, branches snapping underfoot, night falling faster than expected. You see a strange shape moving through the mist, gliding rather than walking. You hear a creaking sound ahead, like wooden bones or old hinges. You feel the eyes of the forest watching you. In that moment, every story about Baba Yaga makes sense. She is the uncertainty of the world, the wildness of nature, the test that comes when you least expect it. And legend of Baba Yaga has survived because it speaks to something universal. We all face moments in life where we feel lost, tested, or afraid. We all encounter forests of confusion or hardship. And in these moments, something inside us, call it strength, instinct, courage, helps us find our way. Baba Yaga is that moment of fear that forces transformation. She is the darkness at the edge of the path that makes you step carefully. She is the ancient voice that asks, "Are you ready for what comes next?" And whether she helps you or destroys you depends on your answer.
There are some legends born from forests, some from old villages, and some from ancient gods. But the Red Room curse is different. It was born from screens, from the quiet glow of computer monitors in dark bedrooms, from school labs where kids stayed too long after hours, and from the eerie silence of the early internet, when no one really understood what dangers floated between the wires. The Red Room curse is not about a monster hiding under your bed or a ghost wandering a hallway. It is about a question, a simple, chilling question that appears when you least expect it. A red window pops up on your screen, uninvited, unavoidable, displaying a single message. Do you like the Red Room? Those who see it say the question is harmless at first glance, but once you read it, something in your mind changes, as if the words reach into a hidden place inside you. This is the beginning of one of the internet's most disturbing legends, a story that blends horror, technology, and psychology into something that feels terrifyingly real. The origins of the Red Room curse trace back to Japan during the late 1990s and early 2000s, a time when home computers were becoming common and children spent more time alone online. Back then, the internet felt like a new world, a place of curiosity and danger. People didn't know what was safe, what was real, or what could be lurking behind a simple website. In this atmosphere of mystery, rumors began spreading among young students. Somewhere online, there existed a cursed pop-up window. The moment you saw it, your fate was sealed. The story spread quietly through online forums and whispered conversations at school, each version slightly different, yet always ending the same way. The victim would be found dead in their room, surrounded by blood, as if they themselves had painted the walls red. The pop-up itself became the heart of the legend. Unlike normal ads or warnings, this window could not be clicked away, closed, or escaped. It would appear suddenly, often when someone was browsing alone late at night. The screen would freeze for a moment, then fade into a dark red background. A soft voice, not typed text but an actual whispering voice, would ask, "Do you like the Red Room?" Some versions say the voice sounded like a child. Others say it sounded hollow and distorted, like someone speaking through water. At first, the words were faint and slow, but the longer the pop-up stayed on screen, the louder the voice became, repeating the question over and over, demanding an answer the user did not want to give. The most disturbing part of the pop-up was what happened next. After the question repeated several times, the screen would shift, showing a list of names written in red. These were supposedly the names of the victims who had previously seen the pop-up, people who had taken their own lives or died mysteriously after encountering it. According to the legend, the final name on the list was always blank. The moment the viewer saw this empty space, their own name would slowly appear as if typed by an invisible hand. In this moment, they realized the curse had already taken hold. The victim's fate was sealed. No one who saw their own name appear ever lived long enough to warn others. One of the most well-known stories tied to the Red Room curse involves a Japanese schoolboy whose death became the center of an online rumor storm. The boy had been quiet, often staying after school to play games on the computer in the empty computer lab. One afternoon, his classmates noticed he seemed distracted, staring blankly at his screen with a pale, frightened expression. When they approached him, he suddenly closed the browser, pretending nothing was wrong, but when they looked closer, they saw he was shaking. Later that night, the boy was found dead in his home. The walls of his room were covered in red, his own blood painted in uneven strokes as though he had been possessed or forced to do it. When investigators checked his computer, they found traces of a strange pop-up window in the system memory. No one could identify the source. No virus, no website, no file, just digital echoes of a window that did not exist. Stories like this one led people to believe the Red Room curse was more than just a frightening rumor. Some said it was created by a hacker who wanted to scare children. Others believed it was a psychological experiment gone wrong, designed to manipulate the mind through subliminal messages. And some believed it was supernatural, a digital ghost that latched onto vulnerable people, whispering suggestions until they lost control. What made the legend powerful was the lack of clear explanation. In a world where everything online felt new and mysterious, the idea that a computer pop-up could kill you did not seem impossible. Fear filled the gaps where facts were missing.
The Red Room curse also became linked to the idea of internet spirits, digital echoes of suffering or trauma that attach themselves to files, videos, or websites. This concept grew from a modern fear that the places we visit online, the things we click, and the messages we read can affect our minds in ways we don't fully understand. The legend suggests that the Red Room pop-up is not just a program or a malicious prank, but something alive, something that feeds on attention, fear, and curiosity. Once you see the question, "Do you like the Red Room?" the curse begins working inside your thoughts. It makes you anxious. It makes you imagine things. It makes you question what is real. In the end, it convinces you that the only escape is to create your own Red Room. Another chilling aspect of the legend is how it plays with the fear of losing control. The victims in the stories often act against their own will, as though guided by an invisible presence. They paint their walls. They leave strange messages behind. They stop sleeping or eating. The pop-up is only the beginning. After seeing it, victims report hearing whispers even when the computer is turned off. They feel watched. They feel an urge growing inside them to color their room with something red. The legend suggests that the victim becomes trapped in a mental loop, an infection of the mind rather than a physical curse. In a psychological sense, the Red Room curse reflects a very real fear, the fear of being alone with technology, of stumbling across something disturbing when no one else is around to help. Many people today experience a quiet discomfort while browsing the internet late at night, aware that the online world is filled with both information and danger. The Red Room curse plays on the idea that the internet is not just a tool, but a world of its own, with dark corners that are not meant to be explored. Some modern versions of the legend claim that the Red Room curse still exists, but it has evolved. Instead of a pop-up, it might appear as a strange advertisement on a video sharing platform. It might appear as a glitchy message on social media. "Do you like the Red Room?" It might even appear in a dream after watching something unsettling online. The curse adapts, following the growth of technology. What once appeared on old desktop computers now travels through phones, browsers, and apps. The medium changes, but the fear stays the same. Even though the Red Room curse is widely considered an urban legend, its impact is real. People avoid certain websites. They close suspicious windows immediately. They feel uneasy when a pop-up appears. The legend remains alive because it taps into a universal fear. What if something online is watching you? What if clicking the wrong thing can change your mind? What if a simple question can end your life?
If you travel deep into the rural provinces of the Philippines, far from busy cities and neon lights, you will eventually reach villages where the night feels heavier than usual, where dogs bark at what looks like empty darkness, and where the elders still whisper warnings that sound like they come from centuries of fear. There, people speak of a creature that does not walk like a monster from stories, but moves like a shadow, blending with everything familiar. It can be a kind neighbor in the morning, a friendly vendor at the market, or a distant relative visiting from another town. But when the sun goes down and the world grows quiet, that same person might transform into something far more terrifying. This is the Aswang, one of the most disturbing and complex legends of the Philippines, a creature that symbolizes distrust, fear of the unknown, and the horrifying idea that true danger might be hiding behind the eyes of someone you think you know. The Aswang is not just one monster. It is a whole category of shape-shifting beings, each with different abilities, appearances, and habits. But at its core, the Aswang is defined by one terrifying feature. It is a predator disguised as a human. It does not lurk in caves or abandoned houses. It lives among people, blending into society so perfectly that no one suspects anything. During the day, an Aswang might act kind, generous, and quiet. They might smile at children, help neighbors, or behave like the most harmless person you could meet. But inside,
There is a hunger that grows stronger with each passing night, a hunger for human flesh, or more specifically, the blood of the weak, the unborn, and the vulnerable. At night, when the Aswang's true nature awakens, its body begins to change. The transformation depends on the type of Aswang. Some become winged creatures, with long tongues like thin ropes designed to slip through holes in roofs. Others turn into dog-like or pig-like beasts with glowing eyes. Still others separate their torso from their legs, sprouting wings as they fly through the sky searching for victims. In every form, the Aswang becomes something unnervingly fast, flexible, and silent. Its presence is marked by the sound tick-tick, a clicking noise that gets quieter the closer the creature gets, an evil trick to confuse victims into thinking it is far away when it is already watching from just outside their window. The origin of the Aswang legend goes back hundreds, maybe thousands of years, long before the Philippines was colonized or shaped by outside forces. Many believe the Aswang grew from ancient animistic beliefs, where spirits, demons, and shapeshifters existed alongside humans. Early Filipinos lived in communities surrounded by dense forests, mountains, and oceans, places where the line between the natural and supernatural felt thin. To explain sudden illness, mysterious deaths, or disappearances, people looked to the idea of beings that moved unseen in the night. Over time, these beliefs evolved, influenced by Spanish colonization, Catholic teachings, and regional storytelling traditions. The Aswang became a mixture of old mythology and new fears, growing more powerful with each generation. One of the most frightening abilities of the Aswang is its capacity to mimic humans. It can copy voices, appearances, and mannerisms. This mimicking is not magical trickery, it is psychological. It plays directly into the fear that someone close to you could be hiding a monstrous secret. In small villages where everyone knows everyone, the thought that an Aswang could be living next door creates paranoia, distrust, and suspicion. Many communities developed rituals and tests to identify an Aswang. Some believe that staring into a person's eyes will reveal their true nature. If you see a reflection upside down, they say, you are looking into the eyes of an Aswang. Others claim that Aswangs avoid garlic, salt, ginger, and certain religious objects. In some provinces, villagers keep sharp bamboo sticks, vinegar, and herbs near their doors to ward off these creatures. Whether or not these methods work is unclear, but the belief in them reveals something important. Fear makes people create rules to feel safe, even if those rules are based on myth. Stories of the Aswang often begin with silence. A pregnant woman lying awake at night, listening to the faint tick-tick sound from outside. A child disappearing at dusk near the edge of the forest, or a sick person who worsens suddenly, as though something unseen has drained their life. These stories are passed down through generations not only as warnings, but as cultural memory. In many Filipino households, elders use the Aswang to keep children safe indoors at night. Come home before dark, or the Aswang will take you. This keeps kids close, protects them from wandering into dangerous places, and teaches them caution. But beneath the guidance is a chilling imagery that stays with people long into adulthood. One of the most disturbing forms of the Aswang is the manananggal, usually depicted as a woman whose torso detaches from her lower body at night. Her upper body sprouts dark wings as she flies over villages searching for her prey, often unborn children. She lands silently on rooftops, extending her long, proboscis-like tongue through cracks to drain the life of the fetus inside a sleeping mother. This imagery is so disturbing and so specific that it reveals something deep. The Aswang legend reflects ancient fears surrounding childbirth, pregnancy, and the fragility of life. Before modern hospitals, childbirth was extremely dangerous in rural areas. Many women died. Many infants were lost, and families needed explanations that made sense within their world. The Aswang became the face for these invisible threats, a monster that embodied the danger that communities could not control. Another type of Aswang, the Sigbin, resembles a twisted, goat-like creature that walks backwards, its head lowered between its legs. It hunts at night, draining victims of their blood. Some say wealthy families in the Philippines keep sigbins as secret guardians or sources of power. This version of the legend connects the creature to themes of greed, corruption, and hidden power structures. The idea that someone might gain wealth or influence through a pact with a supernatural monster reflects societal tensions that still exist today. Beyond the physical horror, the Aswang symbolizes a deeper psychological fear, the fear of betrayal. Because the creature hides in plain sight, it forces people to question those around them. Many stories involve a kind neighbor who suddenly behaves strangely, eating raw meat, avoiding sunlight, becoming quiet and withdrawn. In these tales, the protagonist slowly realizes that the person they trusted is not who they thought. This theme is powerful because it's universal. Everyone, at some point, fears being deceived or harmed by someone close. The Aswang takes this fear and gives it a face, a monstrous face that smiles at you during the day and stalks you at night. One well-known story tells of a young woman who began noticing strange footprints outside her home every morning. They were small at first, like a child's, but over several nights they grew larger, clawed, and heavier. Her family told her not to worry, but she felt that someone, or something, was watching her. One evening, she stayed awake and listened carefully. Just past midnight, she heard the tick-tick sound, faint, but rhythmic. She looked out the window and saw a dark shape crouched on her roof, its long tongue hanging like a rope, searching for a crack. Frozen with terror, she realized the creature was after her unborn child. Desperate, she grabbed a handful of garlic and threw it onto the roof. The creature screeched, flapping its wings, and vanished into the night. The next morning, she found deep scratch marks on her window. She moved to another village soon after. The locals say that if she had waited even one more night, the Aswang would have succeeded. Another tale tells of a village where chickens and pigs began disappearing without a trace. The villagers heard strange scratching under their huts at night, but no matter how many traps they set, the culprit was never caught. Suspicion grew until one man noticed that his neighbor, a quiet, polite woman, never seemed to sleep. Her eyes were always slightly red, and she avoided looking directly at anyone. One night, he followed her into the forest and saw her transform. Her spine cracked, her arms stretched, and her body shifted into a winged creature. Horrified, he ran back to the village and alerted the others, but when they returned with torches, she was already at her doorstep, looking human again, smiling sweetly. The villagers burned her house the next day, believing that the Aswang had fled. But some say the tick-tick sounds continued for weeks afterwards, as though something was waiting in the trees. In the Philippines, the Aswang legend is so deeply rooted that even today, some communities still fear it. Reports of sightings appear in rural newspapers, families carry garlic or keep sharp talismans near their beds, pregnant women are advised not to sleep alone or near open windows. Whether these precautions come from belief or tradition, the legend's grip remains strong. In the end, the Aswang is more than a monster. It is a reflection of cultural fears, historical hardships, and the fragile trust that holds communities together. It is the shapeshifter inside every fear we cannot name, the danger that hides behind a familiar face, the threat that grows stronger in silence, the darkness that waits beyond the edge of our homes. And when the
Nukulave is one of the most terrifying creatures ever whispered about in Scottish folklore, especially in the isolated Orkney Islands, where storms shape the land and the sea feels alive with secrets. When people speak of monsters, they often imagine something distant, something exaggerated. But the Nukulave never felt like a myth to the islanders. It felt real, too real, as if it moved between shadows just out of sight. It is described as a creature so horrible that the human mind struggles to make sense of it. Islanders said it looked like a man fused to a gigantic horse, but without skin.
No flesh covered its body. Its dark red muscles pulsed openly, and veins crawled like black vines across its exposed form. The horse part had a bloated body, massive and powerful, with a huge single eye glowing like a dying ember. Its breath was said to wilt crops, kill livestock, and spread sickness through the air. The human torso attached to it was thin and long, with arms dragging almost to the ground. Its fingers were bony hooks, capable of ripping through boats, wood, or anything foolish enough to come near it. But perhaps the most disturbing detail was its face. Twisted, stretched too long, with a mouth that seemed permanently curled into a silent scream. This was the Nukulave, the demon of land and sea, a creature people feared so much they avoided even speaking its name. The legend of the Nukulave comes from a time when survival was hard. The sea was both a lifeline and a grave. Storms destroyed fishing boats, crops failed in cold winds, diseases spread quickly. When misfortune struck repeatedly, people needed explanations, and in the Orkney Islands, many believed the Nukulave was behind it. It was thought to be a spirit born from the ocean's anger, something older than humans and far more cruel. Unlike many monsters that stayed in one place, the Nukulave could move freely between land and water. In the winter months, when the sea grew violent and the land fell quiet, people said the creature would rise from the waves and walk the shoreline. It hated humans, it despised warmth and life, and everything it touched suffered. Farmers who woke to find their horses dead or their cattle rotting claimed the Nukulave had breathed on them. When a strange plague called Mordasheen spread across the islands, killing animals and poisoning crops, villagers believed the Nukulave was the one responsible. They imagined its breath drifting over the fields like fog, burning everything from the inside. One of the most haunting parts of the legend is how the creature behaves. The Nukulave doesn't roar, doesn't stomp, doesn't make a sound. It approaches in complete silence. Islanders said its footsteps were so soft that you only realized it was behind you when you felt its breath on your neck. Its hatred for humans was so strong that it chased anyone it saw, driven by a rage that never ended. Those who saw it and lived claimed that running was the only option, but you could not outrun it. The Nukulave was impossibly fast, its horse body galloping across the rough ground with unnatural grace. Survivors said the only reason it let them live was because they reached a freshwater stream. According to the legend, the Nukulave could not cross running fresh water. It was bound to the ocean and salt water, and the purity of fresh water created a barrier it could not break. This detail led to one of the most famous Orkney tales, the story of a man named Tamas, said to be the only person who ever escaped the Nukulave after seeing it up close. Tamas was walking home late at night when he felt something watching him. The land was quiet, too quiet. No wind, no birds, no waves. Then he heard soft, wet footsteps behind him. When he turned, he saw a shape rising in the darkness, growing taller and taller, until the full form of the Nukulave came into view. Tamas froze. His mind struggled to understand what he was looking at. The creature stood half man, half horse, both pieces fused together like a nightmare painting. Its exposed muscles glistened wet under the moonlight. Its huge single eye glowed red like burning coal. Tamas's instinct took over. He ran. The Nukulave charged after him, silent, relentless. Tamas could feel its breath burning the air behind him. He sprinted toward a stream he knew nearby, hoping the legends were true. He reached it and leapt across the water, just as the creature lunged. The Nukulave stopped at the edge, shrieking without a voice, its face twisted in rage. Then it slowly backed away, retreating toward the sea. Tamas never walked alone at night again. The creature's origin is not completely known because the legend is older than written records. Some say it was a demon born from Norse mythology, a leftover piece of ancient Scandinavian stories that settled into the culture of the islands when Vikings ruled the region. Others believe it was tied to the Scottish sea god known as the Myther of the Sea, a protective spirit who kept dangerous creatures trapped beneath the waves most of the year. According to that version, during the summer months, the Myther of the Sea held the Nukulave underwater, chained and powerless. But in winter, she grew weak and the creature was able to escape and wander the land freely. That explained why disasters always seemed worse in the cold months. It wasn't the weather people feared, it was the monster waking up. Unlike many myths, the Nukulave has no moral lesson. It does not punish greed, it does not test bravery, it does not appear because someone summoned it. It exists purely as a force of destruction. It is fear itself, shaped into a creature that looks like something from a nightmare. The legend may have been a way for islanders to explain the unpredictable nature of life by the sea. Storms that came out of nowhere, diseases without cures, winters that lasted too long. All of these could be personified through a creature like the Nukulave. But even if it started as a symbol, the way people described it, with such specific and horrific detail, suggests that many felt it was more than just a story. Today, the Nukulave remains one of the darkest creatures of Scottish folklore. Unlike friendly fairies or mischievous spirits, this monster is brutally simple. It appears, it kills, it vanishes. And even now, people living in the Orkney Islands sometimes speak carefully around certain places, especially near old coastal roads and lonely fields. The fear might be old, but it never fully disappeared. Legends like the Nukulave survive because they speak to something deep inside us. That part that feels uneasy in the dark. That part that senses danger when everything is too quiet. That part that believes some places were never meant for humans to walk alone.
The Midnight Game is one of the most unsettling modern legends, a ritual whispered about on internet forums, paranormal websites, and late-night storytelling circles. But the ritual itself is not what terrifies people the most. It is the entity said to appear once the game begins. According to the legend, the Midnight Game summons a presence that hunts you in your own home, a presence that knows your fears, a presence that feeds on dread, regret, and the silence between heartbeats. People call it the Midnight Man, but most simply refer to it as the Midnight Game entity, a shadowy figure with no fixed shape, no clear face, and no mercy for those who play. The ritual has the structure of a dare, something teenagers try for a thrill, but the legend describes it as something far older, rooted in pagan punishment rites meant to torment those who broke sacred rules. The idea is simple. A person invites the entity into their house at midnight and then must stay alive until 3:33 a.m. while it stalks them in the dark. But the terrifying part is the way the entity behaves. It never speaks, it never shows itself fully, and it never forgets someone who summoned it. The ritual begins with a set of instructions that feels almost like a trap disguised as a game. The player must write their full name on a piece of paper. Then they must prick their finger and place a drop of their own blood on the paper. This alone sets the tone, a personal offering, a signature paid in blood. The instructions say to place the paper in front of a wooden door, turn off all lights, and wait until the clock strikes exactly 12 a.m. Then, they knock on the door 22 times, making sure the final knock happens exactly at midnight. When the door is opened and the candle is lit, the Midnight Game begins. From that moment onward, the player must keep moving, keep their candle burning, and never let the darkness swallow them. But the legend insists that once you perform this ritual, your house is no longer just a house. It becomes a maze where shadows behave strangely, where whispers form in empty rooms, and where something begins to walk behind you. The entity is described differently in every story, which makes it even more disturbing. Some say it is a tall, skeletal figure with long limbs that scrape against the floor. Others claim it is a shapeless black mass that moves like smoke. A few insist that it appears as a shadow of the player themselves, but twisted, stretched, wrong.
But the common detail across every version is that the entity is something that feeds on fear. The more afraid you are, the closer it gets. It doesn't need to touch you or speak to you. It only needs to let you feel its presence. Players say the first sign that the entity has entered the house is a sudden drop in temperature. Not the kind of cold that brushes your skin. This cold sinks through your bones, almost like the air itself has stopped moving. Then comes the second sign, whispers. They start faintly, like distant breathing. Then they grow louder, forming words you can't understand. It might sound like someone calling your name from another room, or like fingers tapping the walls. These signs are meant to unnerve you, weaken your courage, and make you slip into the darkness. And the moment your candle goes out is the moment the entity draws near. Stories tell of players scrambling to relight their candle as quickly as possible, their hands shaking violently because they can feel something standing right behind them. They describe the sensation of being watched with an intensity that feels almost physical. Some say they felt fingers brush their neck or the cold outline of a hand press against their back. Others claim the entity breathes down their ear, slow and deliberate, like it is learning their fear. The legend states that if you fail to relight your candle in 10 seconds, you must surround yourself with a circle of salt. This salt circle is the only thing that can protect you from the entity until the game ends. But even then, the entity does not leave. People inside the salt circle reported seeing a shadow shape kneeling inches away from them. They heard scratches on the floor. They smelled rot and damp earth, as if the thing had come from somewhere deep underground. A few even said the entity would lean so close they could hear it trying to mimic human breathing. Slow, heavy, unnatural. What makes the Midnight Game entity so terrifying is the idea that it is not summoned from a specific place. It is conjured from the player's own fears, created from the darkest parts of their mind. Some paranormal enthusiasts believe the entity has no shape of its own. It becomes whatever the player secretly fears the most, whether that fear is abandonment, shadows, death, or guilt. That is why no two sightings ever match. It is a monster tailored to each player's nightmares. And even after the game ends at 3:33 a.m., the legend warns that the entity does not fully disappear. It simply retreats. It waits. It watches from corners the player never looks at. That is why people who claim to have played the Midnight Game often report strange things long after the ritual. Cold spots, whispers at night, shadow figures that appear for a split second. The entity marks them, a silent witness to their weakest moment, and comes back when they least expect it. The most disturbing part of the legend is the list of consequences for losing the game. If the entity catches a player in the dark, different endings are told. Some say it will drive the player insane, forcing them to relive their worst memories over and over inside their mind. Others believe it physically harms the player, twisting their body in ways that defy nature. Some versions say the entity does not kill its victims. Instead, it drains pieces of them: hope, courage, happiness, leaving them hollow and numb. The darkest version claims that players who lose simply disappear. They are never found. Their houses remain spotless, their doors unlocked, their candles burned to the wick. And the only sign something happened is a faint bloody fingerprint somewhere on the walls. Because the legend spread mostly through internet horror communities, many people assume it is nothing more than a creepypasta creation. But what makes it so chilling is how convincingly it blends old folklore with modern ritual culture. Ancient pagan ceremonies, fear-based punishments, candle rituals, salt circles. These are all real traditions found in history. The Midnight Game simply merges them into something personal and terrifying, something that feels like it was designed to trap curious people who underestimate the danger. And like many dark legends, once you hear the rules, the temptation to try them becomes strangely strong. That's part of the curse. The ritual dares you, it invites you, it whispers that maybe, just maybe, you will survive. Today, people all over the world still claim to have played the Midnight Game. Videos circulate online, showing terrified participants running through their houses, candles shaking in their hands. Whether these experiences are real or staged doesn't matter. The fear on their faces looks painfully real. And what makes the entity unforgettable is not what it looks like, but what it represents. It is the hidden watcher in a dark room, the heavy breath behind your shoulder, the cold hand that almost touches you, the dread of walking through your own house at night, knowing something walks with you.
The hound is one of the most feared creatures said to lurk within the backrooms, that endless yellow-tinted maze of humming lights and rotting carpet. People imagine the backrooms as a place where reality breaks, where you slip out of the world by accident and fall into an infinite trap. But what most people don't know is that the backrooms are not empty. They are filled with things that watch, crawl, stalk, and hunger. And among these entities, none create more fear than the hound. It is a creature that moves like a broken human. It crawls on all fours, its limbs shaking as if they are barely holding together. Its face, according to survivors, resembles a stretched human face, but twisted with two wide eyes, a lipless mouth, and teeth that look sharpened by bone-on-concrete scraping. The hound doesn't bark, it doesn't breathe right. It makes a wet, rasping sound like someone dragging their tongue across dry wood. But the most unnerving part of the legend is its origin, how a human became something that hunts other humans in the endless fluorescent prison. Most stories suggest that hounds were once wanderers, ordinary people who no-clipped into the backrooms and slowly lost their sanity. The backrooms do not kill you quickly. They break you down piece by piece. The endless repetition of yellow walls, buzzing lights, and damp carpet dissolves the mind. Some wanderers survive this by forming groups, leaving marks on walls or finding supplies in rare safe rooms. But others fall apart. These unlucky people wander too long without food or sound or sunlight. Their bodies weaken, their thoughts begin to fracture, and the legend says that if someone loses their humanity enough, if they forget who they are, the backrooms itself reshapes them. Their bones twist, their skin stretches, their memory dissolves, and they become a hound, forever hunting the living, perhaps because some instinct, some faint flicker of old humanity remembers hunger and fear, but nothing else. The idea that the hound was once a person is what makes this entity horrifying. It is a reminder that in the backrooms, you are not only hunted, you can become the very thing you fear. One of the most famous origin stories involves a wanderer known as Aaron, a name found scribbled repeatedly on the walls of Level 0. According to Backrooms explorers, these messages were desperate. "Help me. I can't get out. The hum is in my head." Over time, the tone of the messages changed. They became less coherent, more frantic, more animalistic. Hungry, no light, something inside. Then the handwriting changed completely, jagged, uneven, like someone writing with trembling fingers. The final message found from Aaron read, "I'm not me." After that, the scribble stopped. But not long after, wanderers began reporting the first sighting of a hound near that area. A creature with long arms, torn nails, and pale skin stretched tight across its skull. Many believe Aaron was the first hound, and some claim that if you listen closely when the creature hunts, you can hear it muttering something under its breath, a word that sounds like its forgotten name. Another version of the origins says the hound was born from starvation. Food is scarce in the backrooms, and even when you find it, you never know if it's safe. Some wanderers eat moldy carpet fungi or drink water dripping from ceiling pipes, not knowing what chemicals lurk within them. According to this legend, those who eat the wrong substance begin to hallucinate. They shed their clothes, they become sensitive to sound, they move on all fours because their bones ache from dehydration. Eventually, they lose their ability to speak, replaced by those eerie, wet breathing noises that hounds make. Their eyes dilate permanently too wide, adjusting to the unnatural fluorescence of Level 0. Their teeth, worn down from grinding in fear and starvation, eventually sharpened into jagged edges. The body changes first, the mind follows. Then, when their transformation is complete, they hunt anything that moves, driven by an endless hunger that can never be satisfied. The behavior of the hound is stranger than a simple predator.
According to many backrooms accounts, hounds react strongly to eye contact. If you stare at them, they freeze, tilt their heads, and begin crawling toward you slowly, their movements jerky and unnatural. But if you look away, they sprint, their limbs slapping against the ground with frightening speed. Survivors say the key is to avoid making eye contact and move calmly, quietly. Running or panicking only attracts them. Some explorers describe seeing hounds lurking at the end of long hallways, watching from the shadows with their disturbingly human eyes. Others claim the creatures hide behind pillars or corners, peeking out, as though studying their prey, learning their habits. This intelligence is what frightens most wanderers. Hounds are not mindless beasts. They are something between human and monster, too clever to escape, too broken to reason with. In deeper levels, especially level 1 and level 2, the hounds become more aggressive. These areas are darker, rusted, and filled with industrial echoes that hide the sound of their movements. Many explorers say the hounds on these levels show signs of evolution, patches of hair, thicker limbs, jaws that stretch wider than human anatomy should allow. Some theorize hounds adapt to the environment, becoming stronger and more feral the deeper they go. Others believe that the deeper levels contain older hounds, creatures who have existed for years or decades, long after their human memories have rotted away. These ancient hounds move faster, attack harder, and seem to know the layout of the backrooms better than any living explorer. But the darkest version of the origin claims that hounds are created on purpose. According to this telling, the backrooms are not just an accident or a glitch in reality, they are a feeding ground, a place that transforms humans into monsters to maintain an ecosystem. Wanderers who survive too long become a threat to the system, so the backrooms break them, twist them, rebuild them into tools that serve the environment. In this theory, hounds function like natural predators, keeping wanderers from staying in one place too long. They push them deeper, drive them into new levels, prevent the backrooms from becoming stagnant with survivors. In other words, hounds are part of the system, and the system wants you afraid. Some storytellers even claim the transformation begins subtly. A wanderer hears a low growl behind them that no one else hears. Their joints ache for no reason. Their nails crack and sharpen. They begin to crawl when tired because standing suddenly feels wrong. Their thoughts become shorter, more primitive. Their memories fade. Hunger becomes constant. Fear becomes instinct. And one night, while trembling under the buzzing lights of level 0, they lose themselves completely. And when they wake, they are no longer human. They are the hound. What makes the hound legend so haunting is the idea that the creature is not just a monster, it is a warning, a reflection of what can happen to anyone lost in an endless maze with no food, no hope, and no sense of time. It represents the collapse of identity, the fear of becoming something unrecognizable, the terror of losing your humanity. The backrooms do not simply trap your body, they consume your mind. And the hound is the final form of that consumption. Even now, people who explore backrooms content say that imagining the hound crawling through those yellow halls makes the legend feel too real. Because everyone has felt that fear before, that something is behind you in a hallway moving faster when you stop looking. The backrooms simply amplify that fear and give it a shape, a crawling, human-like shape that never stops hunting.
There are stories that warn, stories that teach, and stories that haunt. But in Buddhist and Hindu traditions, there exists a legend that does all three at once. It is the legend of the Preta, the hungry ghosts, spirits trapped in a form of endless suffering, wandering unseen through our world, desperate, starving, and forever unsatisfied. Their bodies are described in ways that feel symbolic and terrifying at the same time. Bloated stomachs but thin needle-sized necks, mouths that can barely swallow a drop of water, and hands always reaching but never grabbing anything. The Preta are not just monsters, they are reminders. Reminders of what happens when human desire grows larger than the world can contain. Today, we're going to explore their origin, their appearance, their purpose, and the chilling idea that hungry ghosts may still walk beside us, looking for what they can never have.
The story begins thousands of years ago in ancient India and Nepal, where Hinduism and Buddhism took shape. In both religions, life does not end with death. Instead, the soul moves through different realms. One of these realms is called the Pritaloka, the world of the hungry ghosts. This is not quite hell, but it is a place of intense suffering, a realm where desire becomes a prison. According to the legend, Pretas are born when a person dies with a heart full of greed, envy, jealousy, or obsession. Maybe they hoarded wealth and refused to share. Maybe they betrayed someone out of hunger for power. Maybe they lived a life that was never satisfied, always wanting more, more, more. When these emotions become stronger than love or compassion, the soul becomes heavy. That weight pulls them down into the hungry ghost state. But what makes this legend so compelling is that Pretas are not always in another world. Many stories say that they exist close to the human realm. They move around us unseen, watching, reaching, whispering. You've probably heard people talk about strange cravings, sudden impulses, or feelings of emptiness that come out of nowhere. Some cultures believe those moments happen because a hungry ghost is near. The Preta hungers for food, water, attention, emotions, anything. But whatever they touch turns to dust, ash, or poison. Imagine being so thirsty that even a river turns into molten iron when you try to drink it. Imagine being so hungry that every piece of food turns into needles and thorns when it touches your lips. That is the nightmare of the Preta. And these descriptions aren't random. They come from ancient scriptures and artwork. Buddhist paintings from Tibet, Thailand, China, Japan, and Sri Lanka show Pretas with long limbs, swollen bellies, sunken eyes, and necks so thin they can never swallow enough. Their hunger isn't just for food. Some Pretas desire emotions, some crave warmth, some crave memories, and some crave the life they once had. The story says that their suffering comes from their attachments, the things they couldn't let go of in life. In a way, the hungry ghosts are mirrors of human behavior. We all crave something. We want success, love, fame, comfort. But when desire becomes the only thing that drives a person, the legend warns, that desire becomes a curse. There are different kinds of hungry ghosts, each more disturbing than the last. Some Pretas wander in forests and cemeteries, dragging their bloated stomachs across the ground. Others stay near their old homes, watching their families eat or drink, unable to join them. One type of Preta is said to feed on sadness. They appear near grieving families, drinking emotional pain like water. Another type feeds on offerings, but only offerings given with pure respect. If an offering is made with anger, fear, or doubt, the Preta cannot consume it. It becomes fire in their throats. These details give the legend emotional depth. It's not just supernatural punishment. It's a spiritual lesson about intention and purity. There is one especially haunting version of the hungry ghost legend, from China and Japan. It says that some Pretas are born from parents who failed to take care of their children. Their guilt becomes their new form. They return to the human world, whispering for forgiveness, watching their children from doorways, trying to hold their hands but unable to make contact. In some temples, people leave food and incense outside at night to help these restless souls. The smoke from the incense is believed to be the only thing the Pretas can consume. To us, it's just a smell, but for a hungry ghost, it is a moment of peace. One of the most powerful parts of the legend is the idea that these spirits can be helped. In many Buddhist cultures, monks hold ceremonies called hungry ghost festivals, or ulambana, where offerings are made on behalf of these suffering spirits. The idea is that kindness, even from a stranger, can ease the pain of a ghost. Families prepared plates of rice, vegetables, fruits, and water. They burn joss paper, symbolic money, to give the ghosts something of value. Lanterns are lit to guide them, and for one night a year, it is believed that the boundary between the living and the hungry ghosts becomes thin.
That night is often filled with both fear and compassion. People avoid traveling alone, children stay indoors. But at the same time, prayers fill the air, hoping to give the pretas a moment of comfort. The legend also gives warnings. It says if a hungry ghost becomes too desperate, it can attach itself to a living person. This is not possession in the usual sense. Instead, the preta influences the person's emotions. They might suddenly feel insatiable hunger, overwhelming jealousy, or uncontrollable anger. Some priests say that pretas attach to people who already have emotional wounds, feeding off the weakness just like a parasite. In extreme cases, the preta may drain the person's energy until they become sick, exhausted, or mentally unstable. These stories exist all across Asia, often told by elders who believe deeply in protecting the home from wandering spirits. But the most chilling part? The idea that pretas may not even know they are dead. Some versions say they died suddenly or violently. When they woke up in the preta state, they simply thought the world had changed. They try to talk to people, but no one hears them. They try to drink water, but it slips through their fingers. This creates a kind of madness, a slow, endless confusion mixed with hunger and despair. Imagine waking up every day starving, but every meal turns into knives when at your hand. Imagine walking into your home and seeing your family talk to each other while you scream for attention, completely invisible. The reason this legend spreads across so many cultures is because its meaning is universal. It is not just a ghost story. It is a warning about desire, a warning about excess, a warning about letting your wants consume you until you become hollow. The preta is a supernatural creature, yes, but it is also a metaphor for people who can never be satisfied. People who chase wealth and lose their families. People who chase fame and forget themselves. People who want so much that they destroy the things they already have. That is why the hungry ghosts remain one of the most disturbing, powerful, and emotional legends in human history. And in some ways, the legend suggests that hungry ghosts exist not only in the afterlife, but inside people who lose control of their desires. Those who live only to consume, whether it's food, money, attention, or power, slowly become like the pretas, empty, hollow, always unsatisfied, always hungry. So the story of the hungry ghosts is not just about spirits wandering through the dark. It is about us, our choices, our intentions, the things we cling to. It is a reminder that desire can lift us or destroy us. And it leaves us with one final thought. What are you hungry for? And will that hunger free you or curse you?